Hey everyone, in this video, I'm going to show you how to create a custom object within HubSpot with little coding required. As you may already be aware, HubSpot is split into 5 core objects. As a CRM, the data is split into 5 core areas as company data, contact data, deal data, product data, and ticket data. As HubSpot continues to grow, HubSpot recognizes the need that not every business's data fits into one of these 5 core objects. With that said, comes the requirement to create a custom object, which is a new area of HubSpot where you can put data into and associate it with the 5 existing ones that already come with HubSpot out of the box. With that said, creating a custom object allows you to take your data architecture and structure from this to something like this. In this example, I'm going to walk you through how to create a custom object, whether it's something such as conversions, investors, memberships. It allows you to create whatever the new area of HubSpot is called. In this video, we're going to show you how to set up a core object because we want to associate deals, which may be a leasing deal, and then have the core object associated with the deal and the contact as well. So we can then report on the actual brand, the make, corresponding with deal data, etc. With that said, if you want to head over to this link here, which is basically the documentation as part of the custom object setup as part of the HubSpot API. Before starting with custom objects, you need to meet a few prerequisites, which is you need to have an enterprise subscription on HubSpot, and you need to have no more than 10 CRM custom objects in one singular portal. This may subject to change, so keep up to date with the latest documentation released from HubSpot themselves. With that said, if you meet these criteria, let's get started. So what you want to do is you want to head over to the section called Object Definition. In this tab is where you're going to define what your object is, i.e. create it. In this tab will contain all the different labels, API values, the appendix for what you need to use. So keep that in mind as you flip between the two. So if we head over to Object Definition, it's going to bring up some code. Keep calm. It's not as daunting as it may first seem. And you want to click this drop down. You want to select Create New Schema, which is going to drop you down to the Create New Schema API. From here, what you're going to do is scroll down to the parameters section and head down to the label section. From here, we now need to name the object in its singular pronunciation. So what we're going to do, if we're creating cars as an object, it's going to be called car. Plural value, it's going to be cars with an N. When you set up an object in HubSpot, it will have to create some form of fields from the offset via the API in order to actually store a record in there. Otherwise, there'd be no way to actually put data into HubSpot. So similar to how you have to put an email address with the contact object, you need to specify the properties that appear when you create a new record in the cars object. So the required property for the cars object is going to be make, and it's going to be model. So you've got the make of the car, which may be Honda, and you've got the actual model, which may be CRV, etc. What you're then going to ask is which of these properties are searchable properties, i.e. if there's values within these properties, which ones can you use as fields to search? In this case, I want to be able to search for the values under the make property as well as the model. So I'm just going to make sure the values correspond and match. When you're in HubSpot, you'll recognize on the CRM on the contact screen, along the top, you have filters of your database view. So this is what the secondary display property is. So once you've got a record in the system, what's the one that comes in the second column of the database? So in this case, it's going to be the model. So I want it to go make, which is the record name, then the model, which is obviously the model name. As part of this, we're going to have to set up some properties. So what we want to do is we want to make sure for the properties we're creating, which is we're creating 2, you then have to specify the actual values for the properties. So what you can select from, how you enter the values, etc. So for how many properties you want to create using the API, make sure you click that the same number of times, because what it will do is by default, it will give you one area to specify a property's values, but then clicking it twice like I just have done has created a duplicate to do 2 properties values. So what we want to do is once you've got the number of values you want to add for your properties, we want to start adding the values. So the name of the internal property, so it's going to be called make. Please bear in mind if you wanted to call it something like car make, the internal name cannot have spaces. So instead of it having spaces, it will look something like this. But as it's a singular word, having it simply just as actual is very straightforward. The label is what looks on the front end. So make would be with a capital letter. You can add spaces in the label, you can add punctuation, etc. The internal value needs to be very bare in terms of lowercase, no spaces, underscores, etc. Or else your API call will. The group name for the property corresponds to of the property you're going to create within the custom object, what subfolder all the properties will go into. by default, when you create a custom object, what it's going to do is it's going to create basically the object name. So it's cars, and it will have cars properties. Now, similar to how you have contact properties out of the box of HubSpot. The group name is there if you want to, instead of putting it in the default cars properties, if you wanted to put it into model information, we could specify that there, and it may have 5 properties, as you are aware in HubSpot. The description is description, so it's obviously the make of the car if you want help text. And the options is there. If this field is a drop-down, you need to specify what the options are. In this case, because it's a make, there will be pre-selected values because it standardizes in entry for reporting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add one test object, one test option, and the label for this option is going to be called, which is the human readable front end label. The value is going to be Honda, just lowercase. And a description, you can add a description of the value as well. In terms of the drop-down order, you may have 5 values that you want to add. I'd recommend just adding 1 because you can add all the remaining ones in the normal HubSpot interface once the object has been created, which is much easier if you're familiar with HubSpot. So in terms of this, the display order is going to be 1 because I want it at the top of the list. You then have the option to make the value hidden, so you can only pull it from back end in terms of the workflow, but in terms of this, I want it for data entry, so it's not going to be hidden. As you can see, this faint line here corresponds, that's the end of me specifying the values of that property. So we're going to go back up here and scroll back down and follow this line, which means I'm going to correspond with filling out the property information at the top level. So what this is basically after the positive values, how it displays in the UI. So I'm just going to keep that blank for now. Where it says has unique value, this is for any properties you may be creating where every unique entry or record will have its own unique value. No one will share the same value. This is applicable for any ID properties, any email properties, anything where you've got a standard identifier, basically. So in this case, I can set a test, but I'm going to leave it unchecked because it's not unique. A lot of people are going to share the make in Honda. If it's hidden, you can select that and just check that, but in this case, it's not going to be. And the type of property this is going to be. So this is going to be an enumeration. What enumeration means is it's the type of field for things such as drop-downs and standardized like radio checkboxes, etc. If you're unsure of what the type or the field type is, you can find this in the overview section of the documentation. So if we head over to overview in a new tab, so we don't lose all the work we're doing, if you scroll down, you will have a matrix of what the type values are that HubSpot accepts. So here we can see enumeration, Boolean checkbox, radio select. If you want an email field and you just want a single line text, it'll obviously be string, so on and so forth. So what I'm going to do is make sure that's set to enumeration. And for the field type, I can then specify, okay, of that category, which one it is. So what we want is a drop-down select. So it's one standardized option. So it's going to be the value of select. So I'm going to select that in there and put select. As you can see, we've now completed the make value in terms of all the properties, the values for the make property, which leads us on to now the model. So what we're going to do is we're going to scroll down to the next area where we specify property, and we want to now create the model property. So the internal name will be model. The label is going to be model. The group name, I'm going to put it into the standard group folder. I can add a description if I need to, which is help text, and a list of options that I'm going to need. Again, this is going to be a drop down, but in this example, I'm going to use it as a single line text for entry as well, just to show you what the different enumeration options are. What you want to do is you want to then put the display order. Again, you can leave that blank and it will do it by default, and if it's a unique value or not. To make sure this is actually standard, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up where it says the options, and I'm going to actually add this as a drop down instead, just for standardization of reporting. So the label, I'm going to put civic, which is the human, so it's got a capital. The internal value of that value, so that will be civic. Description, so it'll be basically a 4-wheel, 5-seat, etc. if you wanted to put a description on the actual value. The display order, so I wanted to show top of the list because I know it's the most popular, so the sales reps are probably going to use that the most. If it's hidden property, which it's not, because I want it there for data entry, and then I'm going to go back to continuing to build out the basically the model property, should I say. So in terms of that, the display value, I'm going to leave blank. If it's a unique value, that's going to be blank because it's not. People are going to share the same model in terms of like, so the make is Honda, the model is then Civic, so lots of people are going to have a Civic. What we're then going to do is hidden. That is also going to be blank because it's not a hidden field. And the type is basically the type of property it is. So again, it's going to be a drop down, so it's enumeration. And the field type, similar to before, is going to be a select. Now we've specified basically what the object is called. We've specified the properties that are going to be created with the object in order to set a record up, which you can then further build out in HubSpot's interface as you normally would. Now what we need to do is, okay, as part of your ERD document or your strategy, this object, what is it going to speak to? So do you want deals to associate with the actual cars object, which we do, because we want deals to then be able to list out basically, here's the contact associated with that deal, but here's the cars associated with that deal. We also want it to be with tickets. So anybody that's got customer support, my Civic's broke down, etc. So you want to be able to attach the car to the ticket. We want company as well. And you can also specify any internal names for your objects as well. So similar to how we create one now, you may have created other custom objects you want to link it to. So the unique name for this object is going to be cars. And that's it. What we've just done there is we've gone through the process of defining our objects. So what we've done from start to top is we have created basically the create new schema, and we've created as a car. The plural is cars. The two properties it asks when we create a record in cars is going to be make and model. The searchable ones, so the values that are put in make and model are then searchable. The secondary, so what comes after, is the model. So the make is first, then the model. The properties as part of these. So basically we want to create the make property. We don't want to put it in a group. It just wants to go in the standard object group. So under the make property, the value is going to have the first value is Honda. Honda is its internal name. It's going to display top of the list and then carry on. The actual property is a drop down. It's a drop down select and so on and so forth. Once you're happy with the setup, again, try and keep your setup, if you're not comfortable with API documentation, as simple as possible, because you can do all the rest of the values from within HubSpot after it's been created. What you want to do is then make sure you've scrolled up to the top where you've got the create new schema heading, and you want to make sure that basically you have your API. If you're unsure of how to access your API key, it is in your settings, and then it is in basically the API key section in HubSpot. So if we head over to HubSpot and press cancel, we want to go to settings. We then want to go over to integrations and then API key. By default, this will always be covered up. For the sake of this video, it's also going to be protected as well. So you don't put your own custom objects into our HubSpot portal. All you need to do is press show and then copy the value. Once you've got your API key, if you head back over to your custom object, what you can then do is once it's inputted, you can do a test, which will then allow you to actually do a test call to your HubSpot portal. So if I do the confirm post record, and there you go. Once you've actually done your actual call, if you get a 2 or 1 in your response, it means it has been successfully created in HubSpot. Now, if you get a 400 error, that means that obviously there has been an error in pulling the API and putting it into your portal. Some common reasons as to why that genuinely happens is either the values you specified don't match up with the object definition that I showed in terms of the object, or what is typically done is if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of the create new schema, you will find a button where it usually says see all params. If it says see all params, there's a chance you've missed a certain field. So make sure that's selected and just make sure that every value of an asterisk has it inputted within the system as well. So what that means is if we jump over to HubSpot and we head over to your database and go to contacts, we should now be able to see your custom object created within HubSpot. So as you can see, the cars object has been created. As you can see, the make is here now. So I can filter via that and I can create a new car record, which is going to ask me for the make, which is Honda, and it's a Civic, and I want to associate it with this contact and this ticket, etc. So I could do that and so on and so forth. So you can associate it with the deals, the companies, contacts, and tickets all from create. If I press create car, it will then create the record within HubSpot as a new entry, which we can obviously then pull into your HubSpot reports and then report on the cars object. Or you can do a cross-object report and report on the cars against the deals as well. In terms of where to go from now, you've set up the skeleton of your custom object in HubSpot. So it's most likely you need to build out this. So if you go to settings, head over to the properties section as you know, and you can then find your new custom object. So car properties. So you can see here where I did via the API make and model. If I go into here, I can now add new options in terms of CRV and so on and so forth and save it out without the need to go back to the documentation and continually do API calls. Likewise, you can go in and do a new model, make, etc., whichever you want to do. That will all then save out. In terms of other aspects you can now do with your custom object, if you go back into your database view, you will also be able to import. You can start and import a file from your computer. You can press next, or file, next, one object, or multiple objects, depending on what you're importing. And your cars object, you can now import CSVs into as well. And that's it. That's how to set up a custom object with little to no code using the HubSpot interface, and hopefully a straightforward step-by-step tutorial. If you like this video, remember to like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you next time.